For everyone that's tuning in right now. So today I'm going to be having my coach Paul Schreiner join. I see he just joined. Let's see if he figures out how to send a request. What's up, Paul? So yeah, we'll be talking to Paul today. I'll be talking to Paul today. You won't really be talking to Paul, but we're just going to be talking. I have a few things I want to talk about with him, but I just want to kind of just keep an open conversation, see where it goes from there. It could be serious, it could be funny, it could go all different directions. I kind of want to use this hour to get our minds off of everything that's going on right now, especially for those who are really struggling with it. So yeah, keep it open. Also, just to let you guys know, this week we have a full lineup of people that are going to be joining me to chat. Tomorrow I'm going to be having Tanquinho Mendez join the conversation. He's going to be coming on tomorrow night at 7. Really excited about that one. He's someone that I've watched for a long time. I've competed against him, but I've never really had a chance to talk to him because we're always getting ready to compete or even fight each other. So I'm looking forward to that. Wednesday, I haven't confirmed yet, but I'll be having, Paul, I'll add you in a second. Wednesday, I'll be having Wagner Hosha join. Looking forward to talking with him. He's a fun character. I'm sure it'll be a good time. Wednesday, 7 p.m. And then Thursday, I'll be having my teammate Marcos Tinoco join us. And then Friday I'll have Renato and Raquel Canudo joining us, so that'll be fun as well. So we have a full lineup, and then I still have more set up for next week. So I'll be keeping busy the next few weeks, which I'm excited about. So let's get Paul in here.
Yo, what's up, Paul?
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing? Yeah, I can hear you right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
I just finished a video analysis. I was on MGJJ Live, looking at the first Roger Buchecha match. So, kind of breaking
nice.
Students. Some of the students wanted to talk about the second match, and I figured it would be a good place to start with the first one. And I can't believe it was already. That match was 8 years ago. So
Really? Was it that long already?
yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, otherwise I'm just I'm trying to train from home what I can, studying tape, doing like yoga, leading workouts for online training, and fly fishing a lot. I was in Hawaii training with my friend Kai Garcia and surfing, and then I went to Micronesia, to Ponape for a few weeks, and then I came back the day the academy closed.
Yeah.
And so then I went to Maine. My friend works in a hospital, and she needed to quarantine from her parents because both her parents were high risk. So I let her take my apartment, and I moved upstate New York where I could just be like outdoors more with my dogs and stuff. So
yeah, I feel like that's something you'd prefer anyway, right? You seem more of like an outdoorsy, naturey type guy.
Training, yeah. Except if it was this with jiu-jitsu, it would be perfect, and without the global pandemic, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, so have you actually been training? Do you have someone around to train with, or are you just kind of doing solo drills and yoga? Yeah.
Solo drills, yeah. I wish. I visited my friends in Maine for 3 weeks, and I had someone to train with there, so we were drilling every day, and yeah. But now I've got no one to train with, so just doing solo drills and like leading workouts, doing Hindu squats and stuff.
Yeah. I feel like you can at least find other ways to improve. I feel like that's been like the one benefit where I feel like I'm getting healthier because I haven't been as rigorously training. And at the same time, I almost feel like my strength has gotten better because I've built up a pretty good system here where maybe I'm not training, I'm not, improving technique so much, but at least I can improve in another facet. So I guess we kind of have to look at it like that. Like, what else can we do during this time to improve on? Like, you're doing yoga, maybe go focus on your flexibility a little bit during that time, or focus on your cardio a little bit without the risk of getting hurt in jiu-jitsu. So I feel like instead of just being negative about this whole thing, I've tried to think of it as like, okay, well, what else can I improve in this time? Also trying to be a little bit more well-rounded as well and kind of live a normal life rather than just being a gym rat.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think like really we can improve like relationships. Those of us who are just in the gym all the time and we don't get to be around the, the people we're close to as much as we'd maybe like. And I mean, I'm not really around anyone right now except a couple of friends. But at least I'm like talking to family every day, and trying to stay in touch as much as I can. But yeah, I don't know. I felt like I was in a really good rhythm.
Yeah.
Prior to the point, even though I was traveling, I was training twice a day, and I had really good training partners. Just 1 second, I have an alarm going off.
Yeah, go for it. Guys, if you have any questions as well, shoot them down here. I'm pretty new to the whole interview thing. So I'm sure that like I'll have like a period of time where I run out of things to talk about, or I'm not sure where the conversation should go. So if you guys have any questions, just feel free to shoot them over as well.
Yeah, so I was in Hawaii training with Kai Garcia, who's like, he's a legend in surfing and big wave surfing and water safety and in jiu-jitsu. He won the world championships as a purple belt in 1996, I think.
Wow.
So one of the first non-Brazilians to win, and then he lost in the final at brown belt in 97. And then kind of, I think his career went more into the pro surfing. He started doing water safety for the WCT and stuff. But I mean, he was a top level competitor, big guy, strong guy. It was cool too. He's almost 50 years old, and he's just like, it was super inspiring, because sometimes I know we can get burned out when like we're just doing the same thing just every day, but it was so inspiring to be around someone who's older than me and was waking me up at 4:45 every morning to be like, we got to train, we're going to go to the ocean, surf, whatever, paddle, and then train usually twice a day. So
yeah,
training, and then doing all the heat, sauna, breath work, ice bath, like, so just really kind of healthy lifestyle too. So it's kind of, I just got coming from that, and I'm just hoping to keep it going. But
yeah, well, I mean, it's still there, you can still work that as well. Yeah, hopefully that's me when I'm 50. Hopefully I can have a routine like that, or at least have like a good balance. You want to be able to train a lot, but you also want to kind of be able to have like a good balanced lifestyle as well. And that's something that kind of like during this time I've realized that I want to do better. This is kind of giving me an opportunity to try to focus on different things, reach out to people that maybe I wouldn't reach out to in the middle of like hard training times. So I would like to be more like that guy, like still putting in the work, still training, but also kind of finding a good balance and kind of staying well-rounded, I'm sure. So that's what you would like to do as well.
Yeah, for sure. I look at him as like as one of my main, role models for how I want to continue the next, 5 or 10 years of jiu-jitsu is, and just life too. It's like, it was really nice to spend a month or a few weeks living with his family and helping his son train. His son's a blue belt, but like has a ton of potential. Yeah. I don't know what else. It seems like, I don't know how it feels for you. It feels like super surreal right now, right? Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's a really strange time. I'm sure like so you're in upstate New York right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
The house up here, like on the river, so I could fly fish and hike with the dogs. And I have a couple friends that live nearby that have been, quarantined too. So we're kind of doing social distancing hangouts. We're hanging out outside and stuff like that. So
yeah. So I mean, at least you're doing that. I feel like being in Hoboken or being near the city, you just don't want to go anywhere. Like I go to the CVS, I feel like I could be like risking myself here doing that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me with a little bit of anxiety, but it's true at the same time. It's a little scary right now, but I don't know. I feel like it's kind of become the new norm now. I'm really getting used to this routine at the same time too. So yeah, it's just
seeing you every day, and like we haven't caught up for for 2 months or something. So everything going okay with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I feel like I'm actually kind of like pleased with how I made like proper adjustments where usually I wouldn't be, maybe a couple of years ago, I wouldn't be handling this super well. I'd be kind of freaking out. I'd just be not sure what to do, but I felt like I made some good adjustments along the way that kind of just helped me. Like at first I kind of had like a 2 day freak out when this whole thing happened. I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do? My routine, everything I do is just all kind of like falling by the wayside. But then I kind of like, figured out a schedule. Like, how can I kind of mimic my routine that I have within my apartment? So I'll set up like at first it was just setting up workouts, making sure I do twice a day and kind of trying to mimic as best I can like the cardio that jiu-jitsu would bring. It's not the same, of course, but it's something close to it. And then eventually me and my roommates started getting mats. My mom and dad had like an old mat that they brought over. My roommate bought 2 other small mats, so we've been doing some drilling and training sessions in the mornings, and just kind of keeping I feel like just having a solid schedule every day, kind of knowing what I'm going to do. It's like work out in the morning, do some grip tape work in the afternoon, work out in the evening, and then do one of these talks at night. Has kind of kept me sane. So I'm almost kind of like, I feel good because I miss training, but at least I'm keeping routine. At least I'm keeping myself occupied, and I'm not just stewing that I'm not able to do what I want to do.
Yeah, totally. I mean, those of you who are listening, from a coaching perspective, like Gianni he's like the one we have to try to tell not to train, or maybe it's time to stop, or, like the work ethic is never, or motivated, trying to motivate him or something. He's there drilling at least 3 or 4 hours a day, and not talking, there's not social hour. He's drilling, training extra rounds after class, doing 2-3 classes a day on top of that. So it's huge volume of workload. So I was going to ask you, like, how you developed that, or like who'd you look to? Like, how did you develop not just your work ethic, but like your schedule, like your routine? That's a lot to bite off every day, and to stay focused throughout the year. Because I think, the longest I've ever, barring injury, the longest I've ever seen you take off is just a couple of days, even after a big tournament. Like you won the No-Gi Worlds, and you're back in there drilling, the next day. So,
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
I mean, for me, it's just like, I know it sounds like I'm always getting ready for something, or I'm always trying to work towards something. I just really enjoy being there. I really do. I feel like a real satisfaction. I get like a high off of training. Good days or bad days, like it's something that I'll always enjoy. I enjoy the work. I don't feel good when I'm sitting out for too long. I always just want to get back to it. Not even like I got to work towards this, that. I just enjoy the work itself. So, definitely the work ethic came from like my parents. Like both my mom and dad were always very hard workers. My dad, especially with his athletics, like he came up as a triathlete. He did the Ironman Hawaii. He did the Escape from Alcatraz, all these crazy marathons. And I never got to see any of that because I wasn't even born yet. But just like he would tell me about like how he'd work out in the morning. He sounds like your friend. Just be up super early in the morning to go train. He'd be on the bike before work for like 15 miles. I'm not sure how long, but like an hour a day before work every day, and then go swim after, and then do all these things to prepare for a marathon while still working full time. And just him talking about that, kind of just instilled like the only way to improve or get good at something was through hard work. I felt like if I didn't do that, I was kind of shortchanging myself. And I even got to a point where I felt like maybe all the work I'd be doing was extra. Maybe it wasn't necessary, but I felt like I always kind of like wanted to have no stone unturned. I always felt like I wanted to make sure that I just did absolutely everything I could. So when I competed, I was like, okay, there was nothing else I could have done. It's more of like a mental thing after a while, where it's like sometimes if I feel like I didn't do enough, maybe that would be like a lingering thought in my head. But those extra rounds every day, I'd be like, man, there's no way I can't say I did everything I could to be well prepared. So whatever the result may be, it is what it is, but just I put in that work, I put in that time. So that was a big thing. So my parents, and then just kind of like, just that.
What about like recovery? I know like my own competitive career, like I had, you know, it was early days, so things were different. You know, it was like there was the Mundial and the Pans, and I moved to Brazil in like 2000 to train, and just dealing with injuries and just training with twice a day. No one was really drilling the same way. So, but even then, I always felt like recovery was what was tough. You know, like by the time Thursday rolls around, like you're like, what do you do to stay sharp, or what do you do when you're to recover? I mean, sorry, I know maybe you plan to ask me questions, but
No, no, it's fine. It's fine. We'll get to it eventually. No, this is what I want. I just want to talk, but yeah, I mean, I think I've been kind of like fortunate, just maybe through being young enough or whatever to kind of just like sucked it up. You know, I don't really have a specific way of recovering. I always ate clean. That was always something important. I was always, serious about like getting the proper amount of sleep and stuff like that. But even like, that's pretty much it. And it's funny though, when you say that, like, just kind of doing the basic things, I notice aren't as beneficial as they used to be. You know, I kind of need to do extra. I've noticed that in the last 2 years where like I had to start changing my routine, maybe not drilling or training quite as much, or focusing more on recovery a little bit, where things I didn't do before. Yeah, jiu-jitsu massage. I need one of those sometimes. We need to make that happen. Yeah, I definitely hadn't taken recovery too seriously, to be honest. I think I was just kind of a little lucky. You know, I mean, you always invited me to the Russian spa baths or something like that, or what?
Yeah, the Russian baths, like I mean, the I've gotten really into like the sauna ice, you know, challenge, or not challenge, because it's just, or sauna and ice, just extreme temperature exposure. And I did a bunch of Wim Hof seminars over the past few years, and then some kind of related breathwork seminars that had cold exposure too. So, and I surf a lot in the city, so you know, I try to do the Russian sauna and cold plunge like 2 to 3 times a week. In the summer, I'm not really as motivated to go sit in the sauna, like when it's, you know, 80 degrees.
Yeah.
In New York, but I do it throughout the winter, and then the last year or two, you know, I surf. I try to surf 2 or 3 times a week. So when I'm done with the session, I go and like spend a minute, and I take my wetsuit off and try to go spend a minute in the North Atlantic with, you know, when it's, you know, 38, 40 degrees, 42 degrees. So I feel like that's really allowed me to keep training at, you know, with, you know, I try to train, like I had to taper off a lot, like around 35, 37. I felt like a big shift in my body, like I wasn't recovering as well. And I think I was also just trying to train with all of you guys. And like, you know, when we had the brown belt dream team, I just remember one day I was like watching, you know, you and Mateus and Dylan and Munchie and all those guys, Joel, and was like, and I just can't train at that with that intensity anymore.
Yeah.
So I have to be more technical. So it's always, you know, like being a coach is the same. You know, you always want to be on the mat there with the competitors or with your students, but sometimes you're better served kind of helping in a different way, or coaching in a different way. I know, like, you don't really, like, if you're doing your own training in the class, it's never as, you know, you're not giving 100% of your attention to your students. So I also, like, I do train in some of my classes, but I really try to you know, to be there to help observe and structure the training a bit more, and be there for feedback now as well. So.
How is that balance for you? Because the one thing I always think about is, how am I someday gonna like handle? I hope to own a gym someday and teach a lot more than I do. But I'm always curious about the balance of being able to schedule your own training versus you know, having to prioritize for your students. That's something I feel like, you know, who knows, maybe if I mature in the next few years, I can balance it better. But it's something right now, when I think about it, I feel like I would have a difficult time with. I don't know exactly what my question is with that, but how do you feel about like balancing that?
I think, like, you know, I love training. Like, I love jiu-jitsu. I was never in love with competition, but I felt like it was like so valuable that it was like kind of a love-hate thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I know that I wanted to coach and I wanted to have that experience to be able to to help students in the future. And I also think that that's, I mean, if you look at the majority of the best people out there in jiu-jitsu, most of them are competitors. And so there's something, you know, that it's not an accident, right? I think you could be great without competition, but really that process of like uh, that intensity that you have to analyze your game and go over mistakes and refine is in that competition, and it is, you know, makes the best jiu-jitsu, that pressure cooker. So I was never in love with it, but I was always in love with training. You know, I was always trying to train extra. I trained, like when I lived in Brazil, when I moved back, I did 3-a-days. Like that was the way the training was structured then.
Yeah.
And I loved it. You know, I was beat up, but I loved it. But at the same time, I knew like really early on, like I had some bad injuries that I came to jiu-jitsu with that were from surfing and rugby, like when I was a teenager. That I didn't feel like I really had a career path as a competitor. Like early on, like as a blue belt and stuff, I kind of white belt. I guess it was like a blue belt where I really felt like I want to do jiu-jitsu for a living. And kind of from that point on, I was like, I'm going to have to teach. I'm going to have to learn how to teach. And so I tried to think of I was really fortunate. I had some great teachers. Like I had an amazing art teacher, Howard Ikimoto, who was, I think, really influential to a lot of people from Santa Cruz who went, you know, through our local kind of school system and stuff. And I had some other great teachers, and I always thought like there's got to be a way to model that and like take you know, transfer like what I'm learning from them and their teaching style into jiu-jitsu, and I wasn't really like seeing that yet, you know. And then in jiu-jitsu, I've been exposed to so many other great teachers too. So I kind of felt like that was my path early on. And then it was just, you know, it's kind of like the fight back and forth between like being selfish, and which is a good thing, right? We have to be selfish, like when we're training and we're chasing our competitive goals and stuff. But my long-term vision was always that you know, I wanted to help people through jiu-jitsu, and I thought that I had something like, I mean, everyone has something that's unique to them that they can, you know, tap into that can make them a good coach, I think. And I think pretty early on, like I realized that was what I wanted to do. So it was never so much of a struggle, like different than, you know, where you're at as one of the top, you know, professionals. I'm reading this, or I'm rereading the fishing book right now. It's like called Trout Tactics, but it's by this guy, Joe Humphreys, who he was a wrestler at Penn State too, like years ago. And then he was a wrestling coach, and there's a document, he's like 90 now. There's a documentary called like Live the Stream or something like that about his life. And it shows him 90, he still lives in State College, PA. He still goes to the wrestling room and works out with Cale Sanderson and the team, still boxes. He's 90, and he's like, just an amazing coach too for fishing. Like, you know, his approach is just to, you know, that to always be learning and never shut down the learning process, and always be like rediscovering stuff. So that's my approach really to teaching too, is that I'm always like, I try to teach, try to chunk stuff together in a coherent way, and teach what's important, and teach what I think, you know, I'm very judgmental in terms of what I think is good jiu-jitsu and not. But at the same time, like to just always, you know, keep an open mind, and you know, be learning from the students, learning from everywhere I can. And I got off on that tangent because he said that from his time as a wrestling coach, that the three things that are important to being a good coach, which I wholeheartedly agree with, are like you have to be an expert on the material because you owe it to your students. So that right there is like kind of tells you as a coach how to balance like your own training and your coaching, because you have to stay up to date. You know, like I remember one of the most famous coaches in jiu-jitsu who was we were having a conversation, one-on-one conversation, and he was like, man, that my student asked me this question about defending the berimbolo, and I described do this, this, and this, and this. And then I said, here, do it. You know, let me show you. And I went and started doing a berimbolo, and he's like, I got upside down. I realized I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing here. So, I mean, because he's a great coach, he learned it, and now he's good. He's amazing with that position. He knows how to teach it, and et cetera. So I try to take that approach. So first off, you have to be an expert in the material because you owe it to the students. Secondly, you have to drill and structure drilling in a way so that it becomes a force of habit, becomes second nature, right? And so you have to, whether it's drilling or training, but you have to somehow get across that knowledge and do it enough so it becomes second nature. And the third was you have to have fun. You know, you have to have a sense of humor and be able to smile and stuff. So I think in coaching, like Penn State is like the perfect example of like what I idealize, you know, in terms of trying to develop a room. It's, you know, obviously like super high level success. So like it's, you know, structuring drilling, structuring specific training. That's achieving, you know, quantifiable goals and having fun doing it. You know, you see that team warming up compared to every other wrestling. You know, you see guys showing up for wrestling tournaments just looking miserable, and you see the Penn State guys like playing touch football and stuff to warm up and having a great time. So it can't like that fun environment can't get in the way of, you know, the hard work, but it, you know, really has to have both. Otherwise, what's the point, right? We do this because we love it. And if you keep doing it and you don't have a good time, you're going to end up hating it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's what keeps me coming back with Marcelo's, you know, just because I know the training is hard, and of course that's great, but I just enjoy being there because of the vibe, you know, because of the vibe that you and Marcelo bring every day. Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. You answered like all my questions. I'm trying to get better at this, and you answered all my questions already. But yeah, I wanted to know like what your approach was to coaching, or what kind of like your thoughts were. And one thing that I pick up a lot is that, you know, through people that have come through the gym and come up through the ranks, you're always picking the brains of like other people, and I always admired that, because it'd be so easy for you who've been around such a long time and learned so much to just be kind of like, I know this and this is what I know, this is what I'm good at, and I'm just going to teach this. But you're very willing to like learn other things. Like especially lately, always noticed you picking the brain of Nick and Danny, you know, and those guys, and just always kind of staying up to speed with everything, so that nothing is like too new to you. You know, you're always staying current with that, which I feel like is really important.
I mean, thank you. But yeah, I think I've been around enough people, and I understand jiu-jitsu enough to, you know, try to use my position to get better too. You know, because we're at Marcelo's, we have people who are coming from all over the world. A lot of people are really high level, and you know, and even if they're not really high level, they've come from somewhere with a unique experience. And I feel like one thing I'm good at is seeing what people do well, you know, and understanding why they're good at it, like whether it's a body type thing or it's technical, you know, obviously those are related. And then I'm not afraid to ask. So I try to, you know, pick people's brains, and I try to, you know, one of the other things we get exposed to is really high level coaches like Fabio Gurgel or Braulio. You know, we have Damian Maya. So I try to like figure out what they're doing that's unique and try to ask questions related to that. I was talking on a a live session for our online training with Marcelo recently about one of the, like, a lot of times when I get access to you know, Claudio Garcia or train with Hilly and Gracie or you know, someone who I really consider a master at the craft, is like, ask them, how do you open the guard? How do you stand in the guard? How do you hold them up? You know, try to get at these really how do you hold the back? Like, how do you do a rear naked choke? Like, these really elemental, you know, pieces of jiu-jitsu where I think that there's a lot of clues and there's a lot of insight that can really revolutionize your game. And at the same time, you know, you have to look at what's new and what's working, and you have to, you know, like, you can't ignore leg locks, you can't ignore berimbolo, crab ride, leg dragging, you know, that kind of modern game. And so I study a lot of tape. I'm fortunate enough to train with you and you know, all the beasts we have at Marcelo's and learn in that environment. So it's fun a little bit as a coach to sit back and watch all that, you know, amazing jiu-jitsu happen and allow yourself to be a student in the room too. So there's something that's super enjoyable about that process.
Yeah. What makes you like pick certain people or certain techniques to want to like hone in on? Like say for example, like I like going over like the stuff that Nick and Danny. What has gravitated you towards that, or what gravitates you towards anything in particular? Do you kind of see how it's become such a common theme in competition, and then kind of like, okay, I should focus on that, or is it kind of like trends that you look for, or I don't know if that's a general question, but
yeah, no, I think I think the start is to see that something's working. It doesn't have to be in competition in my mind. If I see it working in the room, and if I see that technique working against like high level people, I know it's working. So there has to be an effectiveness to it. And then just in a meta sense, I really think so much of jiu-jitsu is about the back and the back control, and right, because jiu-jitsu is about submission. It's there's many ways to define it, but it's a fight where two people start standing and it ends when one person taps, when one person gives up, or can't fight anymore. So in a platonic ideal of the sport. So I'm looking for pathways that further that and refine that and build on that vision. So going, to a submission, taking a non-compliant, opponent and submitting them. So the control that leads there. And one of the things that Marcelo showed the world in jiu-jitsu, of many things, the way he put the package together and understood the technique, was the importance of the upper body control in the back control, right? And our system of back control, so much of it is based on controlling the shoulders and knowing that, we're controlling a lot of real estate. We're trying to keep the alignment and the upper body and the lower body work together. But the submissions come from the upper body control. So if you had to choose, like if you're on someone's back, do you want the hooks or do you want the seatbelt? Right, we want the upper body. Like, really, we want both because they work together. But so Marcelo was the first one, I think, that starting in the 2003 Abu Dhabi, that really showed the importance and really had a systematized way of getting to the back, trapping the arm, and getting to the rear naked choke. It was predictable. You can, and then he changed jiu-jitsu again by making all of that available and putting all his sparring online, right, before the 2009 Abu Dhabi. So I think that, seeing it took a while for the lower body, leg, hook-centric control to catch up and integrate what we've learned about the back, from the upper body and trapping arms and isolating. So I look at those as ways to kind of that have really helped put the back position together by establishing many more routes to the back. I mean, that's really what it boils down to, but it's about like in understanding about how to get someone disconnected from the mat so you can expose their back, and all the leverage that you can create by, you know, locking their legs in bent positions to plug the femur into the hip and get leverage on the hip to tip it up and then climb the back in kind of like a reverse order. So it's just, you know, that's one of the main evolutionary mechanisms in jiu-jitsu is the transferring the workload to the lower body, right? Another one I would say is like doing things backwards. Like it really, like, it's like doing things the wrong way and then figuring out how to make it work, you know? So it's not the only evolutionary driver. Like I always like the example of like Toriando passing was always hands on the inside of the pant, you know? A few people were doing like knuckles on the top of the shin in like the early 2000s, but everything was like that inside grip on the pant. And then Leandro Lo is all outside grip, and he's the best Toriando passer ever, right?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, obviously that's another real driver of evolution and technique is figuring out what you need to do the thing that we're saying dogmatically is wrong, and to make that, you know, make that work. And then I think another driver is understanding how to three-dimensionalize technique, right? And how we can disconnect techniques from this paradigm of like, that only works in this situation. That only works like when we're passing the guard. Why can't we do that? Or that, you know, whatever it is, omoplata only works there. Why can't it work when you're upside down and backwards, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I got a little off topic there, but
No, it's good. It's good. I just wanted to know where you get the plan to like work certain things, but it always comes down to trying to find the back and trying to get the submission. That's it. That's what you gravitate towards, of course.
Yeah, if I see things working, you know, yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's like I have to you have to see the technique and be like, is that going to work at the highest level? And if it's not, then why do it? You know, like get that shit out of it. Like we don't need that at the school.
Yeah, it doesn't work, then we don't need it. Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, even with your game, so say like maybe it's not you teach everything, whether it's your style or not. And I think that's what makes a great instructor. It's someone that's able to explain everything, because you're just putting yourself in all positions. But so then in that case, what like gravitated you towards your style, which is a lot of pressure passing, and you don't want to call it half guard. You play like more of like a deep half, would you say, right? Is that what you call it? That's what it always feels like.
It's like half guard. I call it deep conventional half, but it's really
okay.
It's similar to the half guard, you know, that like a lot of people play now, like a Lucas Leite style half guard.
Yeah.
I got to that position differently, you know, than I didn't just like watch Lucas, but it's funny because like a lot of times I'll come up with something and then I'll see that he's already doing like almost the same position, because right you encounter similar problems from that. But I had a bad right knee, so I started playing that game. I love close guard too, so I play a lot of close guard. I used to play collar sleeve. I have a bad right knee, so I keep my right knee on the ground. And my coach in Brazil, my main coach was Gordo. I was like leader of the half guard, so he showed me a lot. I mean, he even showed me that sweep, the way he was doing it then. And so yeah, that was where that came from. The passing. My biggest like influences were BJ Penn, Roger Gracie, and Marcelo. You know, so I trained a fair amount with BJ when I was like a blue and purple belt, and he had left Halps, and he was really good friends with my coach Garth Taylor. So he would come to Santa Cruz and train like twice a week. So I would train with them and get beat up. But BJ was really what got in my mind early, like the idea of passing to mount, and the idea of like how to utilize your head as a weapon in passing, and the importance of head position, and especially the importance of head position when it comes to fighting. You know, not just jiu-jitsu. Like that passing has to engage this other dimension in jiu-jitsu, which is you have to be able to hold someone down. You know. And a lot of mobility passers, they don't check that box. Like I see great passing and beautiful, passing, but it's like both parties have kind of like have decided mutually to play this game, where one person wants to play on the bottom, the other one person wants to play on top. But that style of passing isn't going to work like for jiu-jitsu, for fighting, when the person wants to stand up. So I'm really influenced by that jiu-jitsu, whether it's like jiu-jitsu for fighting or self-defense or vale tudo or whatever, and the importance of head positioning, the importance of passing to the mount, and the idea of just like wearing your opponent down and really passing with pressure, but not in a rude way, in a very precise changes and and timing and stuff. And so then I was around. I watched Roger train a lot when he was started as purple, and then when he was a brown belt, and he got his black belt. I tried to avoid training with him as much as possible because it was, terrible.
It looks horrible, yeah.
And then, I was really influenced by Hillian Gracie. Hillian gave me a lot of his time, and I'm super grateful for that. Like I would show up to his academy where he was teaching at the Flamengo football club. Flamengo, I think it was Flamengo. At like 11:30, and I'd leave at 3 or 4 or 5, and we'd just been talking about jiu-jitsu, just doing technique the whole time, training a little bit, and talk about a position, and then here, like, lie down, we gotta like, let's do this, and then turn to specific training, and more training. And what about this position for self-defense? And, so I gained a lot from that, and then when I started working with Marcelo in 2000. I became friends with Marcelo like in 2004, and then I started training with him in like 2006, 2007. And then again, it was just like, it was everything, that I experienced, but accelerated. It's like that same pressure, the positioning, the utilization of efficiency, of being ahead, but like just like sped up. So I changed the way I understood a lot of things. Like I learned to pass with underhooks. I was using underhooks before, but I didn't understand really how to immobilize someone there. So just always how, like, I really started to learn timing, I think, with Marcelo. Before I was just doing the moves, but I wasn't putting them together the right way.
Yeah. That's what I picked up with Marcelo. Like, even a lot of his techniques, I didn't feel like when I first joined, like no particular technique was like really blowing my mind, but it was really the timing of everything. Like, I remember I came to you once after, like, I think it was my 4th or 5th practice there, and he was just passing me at will. And it wasn't anything. It was just like me, as I'd be like open guard with no grips, and I would sit back or something, and he would just get that underhook just out of nowhere. And it just like, he would find those little openings so well, better than anyone I'd ever seen. And that was something that always stuck with me, is just like, out of everybody that I've worked with, I feel like just the biggest thing that he's like so good at is his timing there with anything. If you give a little bit of a gap, so a lot of people, I feel like even some of the best people, you can get away with those small gaps, but him, I never felt like he could get away with it.
He understands that technique on a deeper level, right? Like on level, he understands what technique X is really about, like what makes it work or not work. So, I mean, there's so much of the training footage of him is available, and his matches and stuff. But just like watching him against the other best guys in the world, and he's just float in their guard, and then one move, knee cut, no set, like, from the outside, doesn't look like a setup, and then just pass their guard in one move, and into a submission. So it's incredible, like the how you can simplify and refine, and how that's an evolution of technique also.
Yeah. I mean, when you were like a blue belt, expecting to become like an instructor someday, And where were you living at that time? Where were you in?
Santa Cruz. I'm from Santa Cruz.
In Santa Cruz? You're from Santa Cruz, yeah. Did you ever imagine yourself living in New York and training and teaching at Marcelo School?
I was so like, I mean, I was always just like Santa Cruz for life, you know, like,
Yeah.
it's a smallish town. It's like a surf town. It's, you know, I'm really happy that's where I'm from and I had that experience living there. But yeah, I never wanted to live in a city. I was like, no way.
Yeah.
So Rio de Janeiro was like the first city I lived in. So the first city I really like fell in love with too. And then on like 2007, I came to help Marcelo train like for the Abu Dhabi camp. Like me and Dave Camarillo came out for 2 weeks, and you know, it was at the old academy on Second Avenue, and we just, you know, we just trained and like walked around the city all day between training. And I'd never been to New York as an adult, and I was like, I'd like to move here, you know, and that'd be great to spend a decade of my life there or something. Yeah, it just I had that opportunity, and a few years later, Marcelo asked me if I was interested in moving to teach, and so I had just opened a school like a year before that was starting to be successful with one of my first coaches, Garth Taylor, in Santa Cruz. It was like things were going great. It was, you know, 2 blocks from the beach from the school, but I had an opportunity to move to New York, which at that point I was kind of feeling a little claustrophobic in Santa Cruz. I just wanted more culture or a different, you know, change of scenery. And you know, I thought there's like, when else am I going to have the opportunity to teach and work alongside Marcelo, who's like had really become my coach at that point and was like a good friend of mine. So yeah, I took it. I moved like not even a month later, I think.
Wow. Although saying you're claustrophobic in Santa Cruz, I don't know if that you're gonna get away from claustrophobia being in New York sometimes.
I'm not claustrophobic, like people.
Yeah, I know.
But it's just like, you know, you do the same thing for the time you're a little kid. You know, like you surf the same place, and you know, it seems like everyone. I mean, it's like I'm not criticizing Santa Cruz. I love that. I love that place. Like it's always going to be home for me, you know. But a lot of it was you see everyone and like no one gets out, and no one's like doing anything, and there's so many talented people there. They're just like fucking smoking weed and doing the same thing every day, and 10 years later they're doing the same thing, and you know, and I didn't want life, so yeah, I after I finished my degree, I like really went full into jiu-jitsu, and I ended up opening the school with Garth, and then the opportunity came to move to New York, so I took it.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like a change of scenery is like important at some point. I almost feel that as well, where like coming from Jersey and New York, my whole life, I almost felt. I mean, if I were to open a gym, I don't know where I'd be, but I can imagine. Everyone's like, oh, you'd probably be in Jersey, right? But I almost feel like at a certain point, I'd want to kind of like get away from what I've known my entire life. I feel like it's almost kind of like just a way to grow up a bit more, kind of getting out of a comfort zone a little bit as well. But I'll probably still end up in Jersey. I don't know. I still, we'll see. I'm terrible. Like some people ask some questions on here, and I'm terrible at answering them or having you answer them. But Jiu-Jitsu, I want to give a shout out to Jiu-Jitsu and Charlie as well. They've been super helpful to both me and you. You know, so what's up, Charlie? If you're still watching, but Charlie asked a question. I believe it's Charlie. It could be someone else. But what's your thoughts on the no gi revolution, especially those that think gi is useless?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it's a clearly different sport now, right? But I still am not seeing so many people that started no gi that are the best at no gi. You know, like I think there's still so much that gi jiu-jitsu teaches us, you know, at least initially. After 2 years, I think you could take the gi, or maybe even a year, you probably take the gi off and you know, wear it whenever you want. But I'm still of the opinion, maybe it's the era that I grew up in jiu-jitsu, that we really learn to be technical defensively with the gi when there's like, our opponent has so many options to attack. But more than that, like we are, yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. Like it's much easier for a smaller person to hold you down, to be able to attack you. They have so many more options. They have more handles. In the no-gi revolution, I assume he's talking like really about leg locks too, because for me,
we'll assume that.
Yeah, I mean, the real like no-gi revolution for me was like watching Marcelo in 2003 Abu Dhabi. As someone then, it was like counting the days to watch the next Abu Dhabi, which was every other year. I mean, it was always great, but like when Jean-Jacques won, that looked different. Like his game looked different. Like you could tell his game was jiu-jitsu for no-gi. He'd taken it, like it looked like so many of the other athletes were like kind of trying, like reaching for stuff they do in gi jiu-jitsu. It wasn't quite working. And then Jean-Jacques was like, it looked like there was a big jump in the effectiveness of what he was doing. And then when Marcelo 2003, I mean, for me, that was when the revolution happened, because it was just different. He just ran through everyone. Everything was like programmed. There was no accidents, right? And then he did in 2005, 2007, even more so. I think 2005, the only match he didn't submit was against Leo Santos, where Leo Santos didn't really like engage, and and Marcelo won, and then 2007 he submitted everyone in his weight. 2009 was the year he lost in the final, and then 2011 he submitted everyone except for Kron. So that was the real revolution. I think even the leg locking game, the template for that, so much of it came from Marcelo's game. Like all the entries, the way to control inside, the way to hide your feet, the way to get underneath someone, and like if you want to start leg locking, I think the most important entry is understanding how to utilize the leg entanglement of what we call the single leg X, or what other people call ashigarami, and like understanding the pathways in and out of that position will give you a template to start to understand like how to control the lower body, right, in a way that you could use to unbalance, to sweep, or to continue to isolate and attack the lower body with submission. So kind of went all over the place there, but yeah, I think that the gi is so helpful. I think ultimately though, you can't ignore what's been working. You have to look at what's working at the highest level, and that's what you need to be practicing. And don't wait until you get to a high level to practice it. That's what I'd say.
Did you always kind of so when you started, or when you were training back in the day, were you always training gi and no gi, or what was it like then? Was it a lot of just one or the other? Or?
All gi. It was like very little no gi. I wrestled like 1 year in high school, so I had like I felt like I understood something about no gi, but really it's what if you wrestled 1 year in high school, it just means you suck at wrestling. Pretty much.
Yeah.
It means on a broad level, you don't really know what you're doing. So I thought I did maybe, but I didn't. So it was pretty much all gi. Every once in a while, like my coach Garth was fighting in Abu Dhabi, so like he'd go through a phase of training no gi, and I would train no gi with him. I was a blue belt, I trained some no gi with BJ when BJ was thinking about. It looked like he was going to fight in Abu Dhabi, but no, it was like almost no gi. I mean, the first time I moved to Brazil, I was like it was summer there. It was like December or something, December or January, and it was so hot. And like, so we showed up. It was like my second week in Brazil, and I brought the gi, and like I showed up, and it's Gracie Baja at that time was was upstairs at at a gym, and it's like, you know,
I think I remember that. I think I was there.
world champions, and yeah, it was crazy. So I remember I get up there, and it was like a sauna, and just there's 50 dudes in speedos. That was the no gi,
Yeah.
no shirt, just the sunga. I was like, I can't. So, uh, yeah, so I went surfing instead. So I avoided no gi like every train. They're just doing no gi Fridays, I think, back, which I think a lot of academies did. I think Marcelo did just no gi on Fridays before he won Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
So all the no gi that was happening then. It was a big, because we trained 50-50, Marcelo's gi and no gi, which I think, to me, is the right balance. And we're not only teaching competitors, we're not only making competitors, the people who train with us are just, hobbyists doing jiu-jitsu, and a lot of them they like both. And we believe that we can teach jiu-jitsu that works for both, and then you can specialize if you get, as you, like what you do before you worlds, you're focused more on gi, and before no-gi worlds, you're focused more on.
Yeah, I always thought like it was a hard adjustment for me because I used to do that type of style where I would train all gi for the whole year and then make a quick shift to no gi when a no gi tournament would come up. But yeah, I didn't really have coming to Marcelo's was very different, having it 50-50, but I always appreciated it because I always just felt like jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu at the end of the day, and I always felt like it was good to be well prepared for either or. And each had their own benefits to help each other in certain ways.
I think
So,
no-gi,
but I had to think about that. I had to adapt. Yeah. Sorry.
I think no-gi jiu-jitsu helps gi jiu-jitsu a lot. Like, I thought your passing got much better. You got much better for people in dominant position from all the no-gi training.
Yeah, because you just had less grips to rely on. You had to use more body weight.
Helped from your no-gi training.
Yeah. No, I agree. I even felt like after a while my barambolos got better because I was doing them the no-gi too. So I had to focus on controlling the hip more. I had to stay tighter to them. I didn't have the luxury of having grips to work with. Yeah, so.
In your berimbolo game and that understanding how to manipulate and attach to your opponent's legs and chase their back and pass, organize your game that way, it formed your ability to negotiate leg locks. I've never seen you get leg locked. I mean, knowledge you have in a tournament, right, or in a competition, and you've
Not yet, luckily.
on wood, but you've competed against a lot of the top leg locks at your weight, and I've never seen anyone get close. And most of the time they do, you end up either getting their back hard or almost, getting their back.
Yeah. So we got like 45 seconds left. I think, man, you did a good. You were like covering everything. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming by. I appreciate it. And thank you for everyone that was joining in as well. Sorry, just kind of cutting off a little bit. But someone said, am I looking at the comments? I believe I'm looking at the comments. Unless I'm missing some. I don't know. But man, Paul, I hope you stay safe, man. It sounds like you're doing all right out there, he's frozen. 15 seconds. Anything left to say?
You guys stay safe too.
Yeah, man. Hope to see you back in New York soon. The service is bad right now. I'll see you, dude. Take it easy, man.
All right.